Amal Unbound by Aisha Said, Chapters 35 and 36, read for you by Mrs. Shoemaker. Ghulam would be here to pick me up any minute. As I packed boxes of my favorite biscuits into my suitcase for Fatima and the others, there was a knock on the door. Seema went to open it, but instead of Ghulam, it was Fazia. "I brought these for you," Fazia said. She stepped inside with a box of yellow ladus. She set it on the table. "Thank you. I've missed your sweets," I said. "Seema," my mother said, "can you get a plate for them?" No, they're for Amal." "I know how much she loves them," Fazia said. "I came to say goodbye, and I had a question." She hesitated. "I heard you work for Nazreen. Do you think if you talk to her about something she might listen?" "Why?" I asked her. "What happened?" Fazia shook her head and squeezed her eyes shut. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Tell me, please." I grabbed her hands. "What's wrong?" "It's ever since we replaced the roof, and then we need a little more to fix our freezer, and then there was the wedding. We're paying as much as we can each month, but when his officer came to collect last time, he said if we don't increase our payments soon, he'll take drastic measures. But we can't pay any more than we already are. We can't." "Fazia," my mother said, "Amal is a servant in their home. What power do you think she has? Look how indebted we are." There was the sound of a car pulling up, and the back door creaked open. Seema rushed into the living room as my father stepped inside. "Ghulam is outside, but he said you can take your time." Fazia stood. "I don't know what I was thinking." She looked at my mother and me. "Except, if there was a chance, I had to ask." "I know." My mother hugged her. I blinked back tears after Fazia left. "I wish I could help her." "Amal, even if you could help them, imagine who else will come to you for the same," my mother said. She put her arm around me. It was then I noticed her arms were bare. "Where are your gold bangles?" I asked. My mother glanced at my father. "She sold them," he said. But those bangles were as much a part of my mother as her long wavy hair. I couldn't remember a moment she didn't have them on. "It's the first thing we did when you left," Seema said. "We were sure we could work something out, but even with her wedding jewelry, the tractor, the television, even if we sold them all, it wouldn't be enough. Not even close." I looked at my mother, at my sisters. Seema's arms were crossed, her face ashen. They tried everything they could think of to get me back, and failed. So if they were continuing with their lives, it was because they had no other choice. Just like me. "I'm not leaving that place, am I?" I whispered to my father. I waited for him to answer my question. Instead, he hugged me tight. I hugged the rest of my family goodbye, my mother, my sisters. I kissed the baby. She smiled at me and cooed, but I knew I would soon be a stranger to her again. I thought coming home would help me feel better, but now all I could see was my mother's bare wrists, Fazia's frightened face, and a baby sister who would never know me. How many lives had this man upended? Why did no one stop him? Chapter 36. It felt strange to be back at the Khan estate. The marble tiles, immaculate white hallways, the enormous windows devoid of dust or fingerprints. None of this was foreign anymore. Nazreen had smiled when I brought her tea upon my return. Nabila admired my intricate orange henna designs, and Fatima hugged me and didn't let go until she extracted a promise of a lesson as soon as our work was done. It was strange to step into this house and not feel terrified, to see people who welcomed me back. It wasn't long ago I was completely alone here. I pressed Nazarene Baji's clothes that night and hung them in her armoire while she reclined on a bed and listened to me describe the wedding. She asked me about the tent and the decorations and the type of jewels in Shabnam's wedding necklace. As I described the velvet wedding dress in full detail and the satchels of dates and almonds the groom's family passed out for each guest, it almost felt like I was gossiping with a friend. The purse she carried was so tiny that it looked like a small fan, but it was big enough to hold all the gift envelopes, I told her. My sister Seema joked it had invisible layers hidden within to keep it expanding. Was my sister there? She asked. Yes, and I saw your niece Sana. She danced with my friends at the wedding. Well, last time I saw Sana, she couldn't crawl. Now she's dancing? Crawl? I asked. But she's Seema's age. You haven't seen her in 11 years, she said. Time gets away from you. But it's your family. I bit my tongue. I shouldn't have said anything. But how could she find time to go to Lahore for shopping trips and not have time to see her family who lived just 10 minutes away? I want to see them, she said quietly. Used to go once a week when I first got married. But after a while, Khan Sahib thought it was best his wife not mingle with villagers. And I agreed. But he takes care of them, makes sure they want for nothing. Nazarene Baji had a bedroom that was practically the size of my house and the finest food and clothing, but she couldn't see the people she wanted to see the most. Her cage was nicer than mine, but it was still a cage. I cleared my throat. I brought something for you. I went into my room and returned with the box. What's this? She smiled. Ladus. I thought you might like them. They look homemade. My neighbor Fazia made it. Shakut's wife. It felt strange saying Fazia's name in this estate, remembering how frightened she had looked. I haven't had a homemade laddu since I was a child. She's known for her sweets. Her daughter is one of my best friends. Nazarene Baji lifted a yellow confection from the box and took a bite. She closed her eyes. Do you like it? She fell silent for a few seconds. It tastes like home, she said. A knock on the bedroom door interrupted us. Jawad Sahib stepped inside. He keeps calling me, he said. He waved his phone at Nazarene Baji. 5 missed calls while I'm in the shower. Jawad, Nazarene Baji sighed. You'd think I have nothing else to do but cater to his demands. Well, if you helped him with the center, he wouldn't call so much, Nazarene Baji said. He needs you. This literacy center is going to get him more votes for the next election, but only if people attend it. Why is that my problem? I have more than enough of my own things to deal with, and I have better things to do than force people to attend a ridiculous center. Jawad, if a journalist comes snooping and finds no one there, it could hurt your father's election campaign. And that affects all of us. The school sits empty after an election for all... The school can sit empty after the election for all that it matters. If we don't get at least one person there by next week, the teacher said he's going to leave. Jawad Sahib exhaled loudly, and then his eyes settled on mine. What about her? What do you mean? She can go to the center. He laughed at her astonished expression. It's not such a far-fetched idea, he said. We'll send her once a week. The center will officially have a student, and the teacher will have something to do. Problem solved. Jawad, it's a literacy center for adults. Better her than no one at all. Me? Attend a literacy center? That meant I could see a teacher again. Maybe they could show me how to write the poem I had wanted to write months earlier. Maybe they had books I could borrow. I studied Nazarene Baji, not daring to hope, but then... "Fine," she said. "Until we can get some actual other people to start going, she can attend."